By the time viewers reached the tell-all, most people thought they already knew this story. Jasmine and Gino had become a familiar pattern on the screen. Loud fights, tearful breakdowns, sudden apologies. Then, another blow-up. The show trained everyone to expect chaos, and Jasmine carried the label of unpredictable, emotional, explosive. That image stuck. Every clip reinforced it. Every argument felt bigger than the last. So when the tell-all promos dropped, the mood was almost casual. Another meltdown incoming. Another round of raised voices. Another moment people would meme and move on from. And to be fair, the relationship had plenty of cracks in plain sight. Trust issues never healed. Money stress never stopped hovering. Gino looked overwhelmed more often than not, while Jasmine looked like she was constantly fighting to be heard. Their dynamic became a cycle viewers recognized instantly. She reacts. He retreats. Then they reset and repeat. It made easy television. Messy but familiar. You could almost predict the beats before they landed. The tell-all felt like the usual setup. Everyone dressed sharp. Smiles stretched thin. Old arguments brought back for one more round. Fans settled in expecting fireworks, not fallout. The tone on screen stayed controlled. Tense, yes, but still within the lines of reality TV chaos. Producers kept things moving. Questions came. Answers dodged. Awkward laughs filled the gaps. On the surface, nothing looked different. And this is where people missed the shift, because the calm on-screen hid pressure building off-screen. Jasmine still played the role viewers knew. Emotional, but composed enough to keep filming. Gino stayed defensive, but polite. If you only watched the episode, you would assume this was another rough chapter they would survive. The show framed it that way. Another test. Another argument. Another reset. But something felt off to people paying close attention. The reactions felt heavier. The pauses lasted longer. Jasmine smiled less. Gino looked confused, not angry. It did not feel like performative drama anymore. It felt like endurance, like people pushing through something they already knew would not end well. When the cameras finally stopped rolling, the energy did not drop the way it usually does. No relief. No joking. No cast members shaking it off. Instead, tension hung in the air. Crew members stayed alert. Conversations moved behind closed doors. And Jasmine did not relax. She withdrew. If this was only about fighting, none of what followed makes sense. Because fights were normal for them. Cameras stopping should have meant a break. Instead, it marked the moment things started unraveling in ways the audience never saw. The calm before the storm ended quietly. Without a scene, without a scream, and without warning. The money issue did not arrive with a scream. It surfaced quietly, in pieces, the way uncomfortable truths usually do. Somewhere between filming schedules and private conversations, talk started about unpaid amounts tied to the show. Not a lottery win, not a sudden demand. Payments connected to appearances, travel, and performance bonuses people expect after doing the work. Numbers added up over time. The total people whispered about reached $70,000. Allegedly. On paper, this sounds dry. Contracts. Clauses. Delays. But to someone living inside the process, money stops being abstract. It becomes groceries. Flights. Time away from family. Months spent filming emotional moments strangers consume for entertainment. When payments stall or promises blur, the issue shifts fast. This stops being about cash and starts being about trust. From the outside, critics rushed to a familiar take. Reality stars knew the deal. Nobody forced them to sign. Networks juggle logistics, accounting, approvals. Delays happen, and that point deserves space. Large productions involve layers of review. Mistakes occur. Not every dispute signals wrongdoing. Some problems resolve quietly with paperwork and patience. But here is where patterns matter more than excuses. What people close to the situation described was not one missed check. It was repeated confusion, shifting explanations, conversations that went nowhere, requests for clarity met with silence or vague reassurance. When someone keeps asking simple questions and never gets straight answers, frustration turns heavy. especially when cameras keep rolling and expectations stay high. Jasmine reportedly did not frame this as entitlement. Friends said she framed it as accountability. If a network profits from your image, your stress, your relationship breakdowns, then the basic agreement needs to hold. Once that agreement feels optional, the power balance tilts hard. One side controls edits, schedules, exposure. The other side waits. Gino, caught in the middle, appeared blindsided. On screen, money arguments already strained their relationship. Off screen, this added another layer he struggled to understand. From his view, patience seemed safer. From hers, patience felt like permission to be ignored. That gap widened quietly. Money stops being money when it becomes leverage. This is the point where tone shifts. What looked like a financial dispute started feeling like control. When payments stay uncertain, people stay compliant. When questions linger unanswered, pressure grows. Even if no one planned harm, the effect lands the same on the person waiting. Jasmine reportedly pushed for transparency. Clear numbers, clear timelines, clear answers. The response never settled. That uncertainty gnawed. Sleep suffered. Trust thinned. And once trust cracks, every interaction feels suspect. Even neutral moments feel loaded. If this story ended with a check clearing, none of what followed would exist. The fact that it did not end there matters, because if money was only part of the story, something else pushed her past the point where waiting felt impossible. Reality TV lives and dies in the edit. Hours of footage shrink into minutes, and choices decide who looks calm, who looks reckless, who gets sympathy, and who becomes the problem. Viewers rarely see context. They see reactions. Raised voices land harder than quiet explanations. Tears get replayed, pauses get cut. Over time, a character forms, and once that image sticks, every future scene feeds it. Jasmine became easy to package. Emotional reactions played well on screen. Anger reads faster than restraint. Frustration looks louder than patience. Each argument reinforced the same idea. She explodes. Gino shuts down. Roll credits. It trained the audience to expect instability from her, even when moments did not fully support it. People close to production later described a different rhythm off camera. They said Jasmine often asked for breaks, slowed conversations, and tried to clarify misunderstandings before things spiraled. Those moments did not make compelling television. Calm does not trend. So what aired leaned toward repetition of emotional highs. The same triggers appeared again and again. Money. Trust. Respect. Each time pushed until reaction followed. When the same pressure points get hit repeatedly, anyone breaks. Editing does not need to invent behavior to shape a story. It only needs to select which parts survive. If 10 calm moments sit next to one outburst, the outburst wins. Over seasons, this creates a loop. The audience expects chaos. Production leans into it. The person inside the story feels trapped by an image they no longer control. Psychologically, this wears people down. Emotional fatigue builds when someone feels watched, judged, and misunderstood at the same time. Even strong personalities lose ground under constant pressure. Jasmine reportedly began to feel boxed into a role she did not recognize. Each attempt to show nuance fell flat once trimmed for airtime. There is also the silence factor. When someone believes they are being misrepresented, trust in the process collapses. You start questioning motives. You replay conversations. You brace for edits before scenes even happen. Stress follows you off set. Sleep suffers. Relationships strain. The job stops feeling like work and starts feeling like survival. Gino struggled to grasp this part. From his view, the show had always been chaotic. From hers, the chaos felt engineered. Not invented, but encouraged. Small sparks turned into fires because fire sells. This is where pressure crosses into something personal. Why keep pushing someone who already looks exhausted? Why lean harder when restraint shows up instead of reaction? Those questions hung unanswered. Each filming day added weight. Each unresolved payment issue fed suspicion. Each edited episode deepened the gap between who Jasmine felt she was and who the audience saw. Eventually, restraint stops protecting you. Staying calm stops working. The pressure reaches a point where continuing feels worse than leaving. And once someone reaches that limit, no edit can smooth what comes next. Gino often gets reduced to a punchline, but the situation asks for a steadier look. On screen, he appeared overwhelmed, cautious, and sometimes emotionally frozen. He avoided conflict the way some people do, when they fear making things worse. That response frustrated Jasmine, who wanted direct engagement, not distance. Neither approach is evil. They simply clash. Their relationship suffered from a deep mismatch in emotional timing. Jasmine processed stress out loud. Gino processed it internally. When pressure hit, she pushed for answers. He pulled back to protect himself. In private life, couples work through those differences slowly. On television, those differences get magnified. Cameras reward reactions, not repair. Public pressure breaks support systems quietly. Friends choose sides. Family offers advice filtered through headlines. Even private moments feel staged once trust in the process fades. Gino appeared caught between loyalty to Jasmine and fear of escalating conflict with production. Supporting her publicly risked his own standing. Staying neutral made him look detached. Either way, the outcome hurt. Many viewers recognize this pattern. One partner feels unheard, the other feels blamed. Conversations circle without landing. Stress piles up, then leaks out sideways. It happens in normal relationships. Add cameras and contracts, and the stakes multiply. This is the part where empathy matters, even when frustration stays high. Gino did not seem prepared for the scale of pressure Jasmine carried. Financial uncertainty. Public judgment. Editing that leaned into her worst moments. When she tried to explain, her delivery sounded accusatory to him. When he tried to calm things down, she heard dismissal. Each response triggered the other. Support fails when communication turns defensive. Jasmine needed reassurance and action. Gino offered patience and distance. Neither solved the problem. Over time, patience felt like silence. Distance felt like abandonment. For him, escalation felt unsafe. For her, inaction felt disrespectful. There is also the fear factor. Speaking up against a network carries consequences. Careers depend on access. Contracts limit choices. Gino faced a quiet calculation. Protect the relationship or protect the opportunity. Those decisions rarely feel fair, and they rarely feel clean. This tension never resolved. Loyalty pulled him one way. Self-preservation pulled her another. Neither could fully step into the other's reality. And when two people reach that crossroads without a shared path forward, the relationship stops being the anchor. It becomes another weight. The moment did not explode. It tightened. Backstage felt heavy in a way people notice before they understand. Time slowed. Small delays stretched longer than planned. Conversations repeated without progress. Jasmine waited through pauses that felt deliberate. Each pause told her the same thing. Control still sat on the other side of the table. Stress builds fastest when answers stay vague. She had already spent weeks asking for clarity. Numbers. Timelines. Basic follow-through. Instead, she kept hearing reassurance without resolution. Backstage, that pattern returned. Stay calm. Sit tight. We will figure it out. Those words stop working once someone feels cornered. This was the moment patience stopped feeling smart and started feeling dangerous. Jasmine did not lash out. She went quiet. People around her sensed the shift. When anger fades into focus, decisions lock in. She weighed the cost fast. Staying meant more filming, more edits, more waiting. Leaving meant losing visibility, income, and momentum. It also meant reclaiming control. That calculation did not take long. Negotiations dragged. Each delay felt like pressure disguised as professionalism. The longer she stayed, the harder leaving would look. The more exhausted she felt, the easier compliance would become. That realization snapped something into place. Survival does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks calm. Crew members tried to keep things contained. Schedules needed protecting. Storylines needed closing. No one wanted chaos. But control works only while the person complies. Once compliance disappears, control collapses. When someone decides they are done, persuasion loses power. Jasmine reportedly reached that point quietly. She stopped. The fallout did not stay contained. Once one part of the system cracked, pressure rippled outward fast. Cast members who had been waiting quietly suddenly felt the shift. Tension spread in conversations that had nothing to do with Jasmine directly. People sensed instability, and instability changes behavior. Andre and Libby became the clearest example of that spillover. Long-standing friction that usually stayed verbal started edging closer to confrontation. Voices rose faster. Patience ran thinner. What might have been manageable drama earlier now carried a sharper edge. When production loses control in one area, everyone feels less protected in the rest. This is where safety concerns quietly enter the picture. Reality TV thrives on conflict, but it depends on predictable boundaries. When those boundaries blur, stress multiplies behind the scenes. Producers juggle schedules, emotions, and liability all at once. Cast members read the room and adjust. Some push harder to secure airtime. Others pull back to avoid blame. Trust erodes in both directions. Andre's confrontational style, already familiar to viewers, landed differently in that environment. What once felt like loud but contained arguing now felt volatile. Libby appeared strained, caught between defending herself and managing the optics. Crew members reportedly stayed closer. Conversations ended quicker. The energy shifted from entertainment to containment. One exit exposes what was already fragile. People began asking quiet questions. If someone could walk away, what did that mean for everyone else? Were contracts as solid as they seemed? Were promises as firm as advertised? Those doubts matter. Once they surface, cooperation turns conditional. Production stress rose accordingly. Schedules slipped. Segments reshuffled. Decisions that normally happened smoothly now required multiple approvals. When control feels threatened, systems tighten. That tightening shows up as rigidity, delays, and sharper enforcement of rules. The cast feels it immediately. Some participants benefited from the chaos. Screen time opens up when someone leaves. Narratives shift. Attention redirects. Others panicked. Unfinished storylines risk losing relevance. Personal conflicts risk being framed without context. Silence becomes dangerous when edits decide meaning. The atmosphere grew reactive. People watched their words. Alliances felt temporary. Everyone understood the same truth, even if no one said it out loud. The structure holding everything together had been tested, and it did not hold cleanly. When one person leaves, the question is never just why they left. The real question becomes, who needs things to stay the same, and who suddenly realizes they cannot? As soon as news of Jasmine stepping away spread, social media lit up. Fans dissected every episode, screenshot, and interview, piecing together the story the cameras never fully showed. Threads on Instagram and Twitter filled with questions, theories, and outrage. People noticed the gaps. They saw moments that seemed unexplained, edits that didn't match context, reactions that felt pushed. They didn't need insiders to tell them something was off. They felt it. Support poured in for Jasmine. People admired the courage it took to step away from cameras, contracts, and public expectation. They debated fairness, accountability, and the morality of exploiting someone's life for ratings. Online, she stopped being a character and became a symbol. A quiet rebellion against manipulation. Fans asked, would I have stayed? Would anyone else? That kind of engagement changes the story. When the audience pushes back, it shifts the balance. Producers cannot ignore thousands of voices reacting in real time. Public scrutiny turns perception into leverage. Bloggers, commentators, and everyday viewers amplified each detail. Discussions crossed platforms. Hashtags trended. Memes highlighted inconsistencies. Opinions ranged from practical to passionate, but the underlying message was clear. People sensed the untold story. The audience now held a mirror up to the show, reflecting what the cameras had tried to obscure. In that moment, viewers became part of the drama. The narrative was no longer just controlled by production or cast. It was co-written by an engaged public who demanded accountability and visibility. Once the fans take over, the story evolves faster than any script can control. After leaving the United States, Jasmine stepped into silence. No calls, no social media updates, No attempts to justify herself. She simply created distance. Blocking contact with those tied to the show or the network was more than a dramatic gesture. It was a way to reclaim authority over her own life. Control, once given away to editing, contracts, and expectations, could finally be hers again. Stepping back allowed space to breathe. The constant scrutiny that had followed her everywhere on set vanished. Without cameras recording every glance and argument, she could process what had happened, evaluate her next steps, and prioritize her own well-being. It's a psychological reset. Removing yourself from a system that rewards chaos with visibility doesn't erase the stress. It just shifts it from external pressures to internal reflection. The act of walking away signals strength, but it also leaves new gaps. Relationships, unfinished storylines, and public curiosity remain unresolved. Even though she is physically and emotionally distant, the ripple effects of her decision continue. Fans speculate. Former castmates adjust. The network navigates the fallout quietly. Jasmine's departure does not close the story, it redirects it. Walking away solves one problem but raises questions that demand attention. For Jasmine, this step marks a pause, not an endpoint. It's a reminder that stepping out of a system can be an act of survival. It allows someone to step out of the role others have scripted for them and step into their own priorities. The narrative outside the cameras may feel quieter, but internally it's intense, a recalibration of identity, energy, and boundaries. The public sees a departure. She experiences freedom. Yet freedom carries its own weight. Choices made to protect the self create uncertainty elsewhere. What will happen next in the lives she left behind? How will the network respond to both the financial and emotional consequences? These questions remain open, unresolved, and more compelling than ever. Walking away may have been the only path left, but the consequences of leaving a world built on control and expectation are only beginning to unfold. Jasmine's story is bigger than one relationship or one network dispute. It exposes the hidden costs of reality TV, relentless pressure, selective storytelling, and the constant tension between fame and personal boundaries. Cameras don't just capture life, they amplify it, twist it, and reward extremes. Emotional labor becomes a spectacle. Contracts promise opportunity but often deliver stress disguised as entertainment. At the same time, reality TV does offer something real. For some, it's a platform, a career, a chance to be seen. The problem isn't the opportunity, it's the system that turns personal lives into ratings, leaving performers with little control over how they're framed or treated. Jasmine's experience highlights that gap between exposure and autonomy. Public perception and private experience can be miles apart. Jasmine steps back, not because she rejects the medium entirely, but because she refuses to let it define her. She is not a saint, not a flawless figure, and she never claimed to be. She is a person asserting boundaries in a space designed to test them constantly. Her exit is a statement, a pause, and a reset, proof that the individual still matters, even when the cameras suggest otherwise. Her departure leaves ripples. Contracts, edits, and alliances now face scrutiny. Viewers have seen that behind every dramatic moment, there are real people navigating stress, loyalty, and pressure. The stakes of fame are clearer than ever, and the choices cast members make are not just about relationships, they are about survival and self-respect. Next up, another cast member reaches a point where the system pushes too far, and we might witness a different kind of reckoning. The story continues, the drama escalates, and the audience stays hooked, not for scripted conflict, but for the human reality beneath it all.